Right, had a bit of a delay there. Yeah. And I forgot to plug my camera in. Right. Right, camera up and running. Pretty much the same as yesterday's live stream. Same thing, different day. Just going to step through pretty much the editing process I do. But what I might start off with today is just stepping through what the import screen would normally vaguely look like when I do an import. So click import. It's going to squawk because there's nothing to pick up. Normally Lightroom will pick up SD cards automatically, but I haven't got one in, so let's go to one of the folders of images I've already imported. Oh, that's interesting. I've never had to import from my actual hard drive before. Well, I won't go through the import process. I have to wait until next time I actually have something to import, because the import screen looks quite different when you are oh yeah, there we go. That'll do us. Right. What I normally do, this pretty much is laid out. I make a second copy. I don't import duplicates. I use a custom setup here for renaming my file. So all I do is put in this box the name of the event or whatever, and then I've got this custom text number original. So it'll have, say in this case it is whatever, tennis space, the number is assigned by the camera for the file, then a space, then original, which will become a bit clearer when I... Then I have, you can run a develop preset if you want. I don't, because I just can't be bothered. There's no advantage for me. But I do run a metadata preset which sets the copyright information. I then fill in some keywords that are relevant. I then always choose into one folder, so it's basically I'll show you the folder structure in a minute. Down here I've got one main folder called camera, and in the case of the sports I would then go down and select sports. The last thing I did was a car I shot for someone, so it's got its own root folder, but all my sports stuff goes in this sports root folder. And I generally give the folder an almost identical name to what I put up here in custom text for the file name. I just generally add the date on the end, so that I know what that relates to. But now, sorting and editing. When my stuff comes in, as you saw from the import screen, this tennis is in its own folder and it's in the sports folder. I create two subfolders, edit and not used. Inside edit I have uploaded, because sometimes I'm uploading as I'm editing. At the moment for this set of photographs I've got an extra one because I'm doing a size for a high res but slightly small size for uploading to a website for sale, and I'm not putting all the ones on Facebook that are going to go up for a week or so, so I just put those ones in this folder waiting for me to go through and put them up later. And when I synchronize that folder, because I've moved those outside of Lightroom, I have to get an idea of what's in there. Yeah, there's 156, oh, yeah, 136, sorry. That gives me a rough count of what I've done so far. The not used folder is because I do not throw any images away that I've rejected until after I've finished editing everything. That's just the way I do it. Because I see no reason to do otherwise. It does come in handy because sometimes you pick one and then when you're editing it you realise it's not ideal, or I want some eyes from, I want to go and find a set of eyes that I can use because I just happen to catch someone with their eyes half closed, and that photograph happens to be the best photograph but they've got their eyes half closed. So you go and find another photograph that was not quite so good but the eyes are open. So I've coloured each of these because on import, because there's 2 days, what I do is I use the colour tagging to tag them a colour, because this is day 1 and down here somewhere these blue ones are day 2. The other thing I do in camera, I don't think there's any left in here. Nope. The other thing I do in camera is I can star photographs in my camera, so I will star them, just one star to indicate that it needs to get priority editing, because I think it or one of the ones near it is the best because I'm shooting burst. Sometimes I'll do a 2 or a 3 star, which means it's really interesting, and it can be anything from just the circumstances of whatever. So that all happens on import. I basically, once they're all imported, all the previews are created by Lightroom and everything like that, and we're all ready to go, I then will come into here, or normally it's on the import screen. Once they're imported, it doesn't jump to this folder straight away. It shows a bunch of photographs here that are the ones that have just been imported. So that's really handy because I can select them and give them a color tag. I can also go down here and put something in the title piece, which one of the websites I upload to picks up the contents of this field as the name of the file on when it puts it up on their site. So it just takes a little bit of work out. Facebook used to do that, but it doesn't anymore. That title used to be in the comment piece that you can fill in, or description piece you can fill in, but not anymore. So yeah, once that's done, I then will go through and sometimes I'll have a bit of a breeze through like this and see if anything catches my eye. Deciding that, well, that one's okay, that's possibly a little bit better. Now the other thing, of course, which I mentioned last time, I create a collection, in this case Waikato Junior Tennis Champs, and I set that as the default collection because you can change from one to the other. When I finish these, I go back to this bunch here and that'll become the default collection. I can set this as the default collection. Of course, if you've ever played with collections, there's all sorts of intelligent collections and stuff you can have. But this being the default collection means that all I have to do is press the letter B on my keyboard and it's added to the collection. So my sorting process is pretty straightforward. I just should mention, if you are watching this live, there should be a comment box on YouTube, I assume if you're logged into YouTube, that you can make some comments and ask some questions if you like. But anyway, so I'll go into here and I go, well, I'm not going to keep both of these. Sometimes I do, but in this particular case I can't see a reason to keep both. And I'm deciding, well, that captures it being hit. That's action. Both of these probably could be kept. And I might change my mind when I get to the editing stage. So I hit B and P, mark it as a pick, and B to stick it in the collection. This one here, I'm not sure this across the face tennis racket thing works for me. So I'll hit X, come to the next one. Out of these, that one I prefer. Quick zoom in, see what it looks like. Lightroom, what Lightroom's doing there is creating a full-size preview. Yep, so that one will be X'd out. This one here, BP, and I just shift it to there just for convenience. So all these rejects are moving along till I get to, see, that's not much chop. Not sure about that one. I want to keep at least one from this burst, so it's a case of finding one that I like. See, that's not too bad, and that one's not too bad, so I might keep two. So I might go BP and BP, and these ones I'll X out. See, that's not much chop, but that one is. sometimes one I've picked and added to a collection potentially could become a reject later on when I'm going through the editing stage, just because I find that it was out. I missed focus on it. See, quite like that one. I missed focus on it at the time I didn't, when I was photographing it, and I didn't get the focus right, and I don't notice that till editing time. Out of these two, I think I prefer that one because it's got the ball in, and a little bit more emotion. That one's not bad. Well, that one's, she's reaching for it, so I might keep that one as well. Hockey, I tend to only keep one from each burst. There are exceptions to that. See, that's not much chop. That one there's okay. Then what I do is I select all these rejects and dump them in the not used folder, just in case I want them back later. Now, definitely no. Yeah, that's just weird. That's not bad. I think I prefer that one to that one. Yeah. Now I want to get few from here again. Now in this bunch here we've got a whole sequence here, and that's not bad. Yeah, there's not much going for that one. Arm across the face, that's not bad. I prefer that one to that one, so sure about these. I'm not too enthusiastic about that hand across the face, unless it's the only interesting one that's there. See, that's the same. If the ball was right here somewhere, I might have kept it. That's not too bad. That's definitely a really good one, assuming it's in focus. Yep. That's a keeper as well. Yes, she's waiting for the serve. So I've now got a selection from day one. Now I'll zoom down here to, oh, that's something while I'm here. I already got one of these, so I don't need more than one. But in this case, just in case I decide to come back and get another one of these, because they're almost identical, I won't go to the trouble of X and rejecting. I'll just dump them in the not used folder. And occasionally Lightroom does that. Now, go down to day 2. Auto white balance is doing some funky things because of the lighting here. I'm going to find something easy. That's actually quite good. Not sure I like that one. Yeah, no. These are a little bit hit and miss because of the lighting. See, that doesn't really do it for me. That's actually not bad. The difference between these is the position of the tennis ball. I would tend to go for that one. I don't see a need for both of them. Here we got the getting ready for the survey. That one's not too bad. That one's not too bad. Oh, and yes. Now if I can scroll down here, I can see I've picked 24 photographs. So I've got 24 photographs here in this collection. So now I've just got this small number of photographs here that I can focus on. Instead of jumping around all over the place and the whole folder full of a few hundred photographs, I've just got this small selection here. So I can come in here, and normally I'd just start at one end and start my editing. I'm not too worried about what's happening here or here. The fact I've cut off half this tennis racket and all that sort of rubbish doesn't really matter. The focus is on here. I might just crop it in just underneath that. Lighting on that's not too bad. Just bump it up just a little bit. Lighting on that's not too bad. In fact, I can just hit previous, easiest. That gets it close because it's pretty much the same as the last one. Drop that down there. There's that. Thing with background stuff like this, generally it's not an issue because it's a sports photograph. But because of the distance between here and here, so this is quite isolated, I might remove that in Photoshop now that you can do it reasonably easy. I wouldn't do it there, but there I might. In the past you wouldn't bother, but current version of Photoshop, the AI stuff should handle pulling that out quite easily. Here we've got one that needs a bit of exposure. In fact, the subject is shadows, might deal with it, but I think we're going to have to go to people mask. Not too worried that it didn't pick up the tennis racket. It's pretty irrelevant, because all I want to do is bump the exposure on her just a little tiny bit. And I might just add a tiny bit of texture on just her. Now, because the tennis racket's on this side, some people might say, oh, crop it like that. I don't think it looks that. I think it looks better that way. Again, bump the exposure on that one a bit. The extra space here is not too bad because you can see that's clearly the direction she's moving into. And these people in the background aren't having to be cropped. I'm not cutting off heads or anything, so I don't need to worry about that. It just adds to the whole environment. Similar thing here. Previous thing, just adjust my crop position. Straighten that. Bring that down. Take it just off center. Should look alright. Now this is one of those ones with stuff in the background that I might remove later in Photoshop. See, crop, she's on the 1/3, that's fine. I don't want the tennis ball too close to the edge, but I don't want to have too much empty space. And there's a possibility I might look at removing this and this and this in Photoshop later, just so they haven't got a big white piece in the background. I don't go to the trouble of doing it for every single one, but if it's like this and Photoshop can remove it relatively easy, then I'll consider it. This one here I'm tending towards square, and then push it just a little bit off center. Again, listen, readjust. And see, I wouldn't go for getting that board out from the background on this one, just because I know it might do a good enough job, but it might struggle with this here. I could always give it a go and see what it does, but it's not a big deal whether it's there or not. It's just that I like to just clean up some of the stuff in the photograph set. A lot of people might say, oh, but that's an essential part of the sport you're photographing. And I go, not really, because no one's looking at these to look at the score. We want the focus to be on this person, and I'm not removing anything that's going to massively alter the photograph. Most people looking at it wouldn't suddenly go, oh, there's something missing from this photograph. Same as removing this person and this tennis ball here. It just removes a bit of clutter if it works. If it doesn't work, it's not a big deal. And older versions of Photoshop, before the generative AI stuff, you wouldn't go to the trouble of doing that on sports photographs, because it just takes too long to do that on umpteen photographs. You might do it on a landscape or a portrait, or if these were one-off action shots of these players, you're just doing a photo shoot for them. But because this is just photographing these sports, going to that level of editing is not really worth the trouble. There's also the fact that you don't want to get too carried away, because in sports photographs, for sports photographs from magazines, they get quite fussy. You can't do much. So sports photographs like this, one doesn't want to get too carried away. You know, theoretically, if this is a portrait of the individual, you might have a go at removing all this text and this chair and all this sort of carry on. The most I would do here is possibly remove this and this, mainly because it's relatively easy to do so, and it just cleans it up a little bit. Keeping in mind, I'm processing 100 odd, I potentially could be, I think I'm processing about 400, 500 photographs, so messing around to that level is just taking till forever. A lot of people would have just dumped these out as JPEGs and that's it, not done anything, or at most just done some cropping and that's it. This one here, I should do it like that. See, current software and Photoshop and stuff, one could theoretically come in and actually move that tennis ball to here to get a better crop. It's then being deceptive in the image, dramatically so, because you're changing the actual key part of it. Whereas getting rid of these things here is not changing what I'd consider a key part of it, unless the people on the day said they wanted those left in. So you're removing a fair bit by cropping anyway. I've removed that number. Here again, the ball isn't in the frame, so we'll hit X, pop that up into looking like that. Straighten it a bit. See how we look. Yep, might drop the exposure a fraction. This is another one where I'll probably straighten it first. For these, I'm cropping just how I feel is the best crop at the time. Sometimes if you're doing this sort of thing and you know it's going to be used in some sort of a magazine or something or other, you need to take into consideration how the image is going to be used in that. See, this one I probably will remove that because it's right above the action. These words aren't too bright and they're more bothered than they are than they're worth to remove them, especially since they're everywhere. But this here, I might just to change how people look at the image. I have two options here. I can have that, or I can pull back and keep the tennis ball just in frame. I might go for that because I also know that I can get rid of this sliver of person. I can get rid of those in Photoshop. So a lot of the editing in Lightroom and cropping in Lightroom, etc., can come down to what you know you can do in Photoshop. Now I've got two options here. I can come down like this. I quite like that. Oops, not straight. because it's still not straight. I quite like that because we've got her, a tennis player, and then we've got another one in the background. I don't see the need for a square crop for that. I might just pull it in the top left. But one of the things I will do is get rid of that, because I know that's dead easy. So I'll get rid of that. The other thing I can do here, because I feel her feet are too close to the bottom here, one of the things I can do in Lightroom, which a lot of people don't do, and I'm glad this came up to play with, is I want a little bit more green down here. So what I can do is pick the scale and reduce the scale, like about there. That gives me the room I want between her foot and the bottom of the frame, because I obviously must have had this a bit tilted when I took it. I can do that because it's a consistent colour. I can fix that in Photoshop. I will get rid of this line here because that's not important. So I know I can put this back in Photoshop later on. In fact, I might pick that as the first one to edit in Photoshop. Here we've got this kid. Let's tweak that, bring that down, put that about there. Now for this we may need to, because those other ones I'd already done a little bit of group editing. What I did with these ones, the yellow ones on day one, is because all the lighting was pretty consistent because it was overcast, I did a rough edit of one just lighting wise, and I synced that across all those yellows so that they all had a starting point of a little bit of highlights, a little bit of exposure, a little bit of shadows. These ones I didn't because they were all over the place. So we'll add a bit of, bump the shadows a little bit, take the highlights down a little bit, and then chuck in a bit of, I want the highlights for the shadow, the shadows for these shadows in here, and then the highlights to drop off any highlights that might end up getting affected, and then adjust the actual exposure, because that's quite dark. That's a little bit better. And we've still got texture in the clothing. In fact, if you look at it, if you look up on the right up here, as I go over the white, you'll see it's close to blown out, but not quite. It's all 97, 98% in here, except for where we hit the shadows, where it's a lot darker. When I roam around like that, and you watch those three numbers up that are up here and up there, none of it hits 100. Even on the shoes. Here again, this one I can straight away see needs some exposure. Bump the shadows, drop the highlights. Bring that down, bring that up. And this one's just off center. I don't, this obsession with on the 1/3 mark is lame. You need to assess it on the fly. While having the tennis racket close to the third and having the tennis ball, the tennis racket, her arm, chest, all that on roughly on that top third is good. There's no point moving that across so this piece is right here. It put it too close to this edge. The position of the player in this frame depends on partly on where the ball is. If this ball was over here, then she'd be closer to this edge because I don't want the ball too close. The other thing I'll probably do on here, assuming I remember, is get rid of this leaf. I probably would leave that one because we might get a wonky shadow, but I'll give it a go. But this leaf definitely will go. Again, shadows, highlights, and a little bit of exposure. If I need to, I'll go and do a select of the individual and maybe adjust the shadows on the person only. Now, the crop for this, I might normally have gone vertical, but because she's about to serve and the ball isn't up high, I don't see any reason why not to have a crop like that, with the blank space on the side the ball is in, and which is theoretically the direction she's going to hit the ball. Same thing for this, so just hit previous, maybe go into the cropping tool and just tweak the straightness of it, possibly move it back a bit. Obviously moved when I took that one. And here the ball isn't in sight, so we might as well use the same procedure. I forgot to turn off notifications for my emails. Anyway, now if I go over this blue shirt, you'll notice it doesn't quite hit 0. It comes close, but doesn't quite hit 0. So I think the shadows are okay. Don't want to go too far because you can make it go a bit washed out if you go too far. But the first one I've seen to Photoshop is this one, because it's quite a good example of probably 3 different things I'll be doing. Control E. Now, first thing I'm going to do is the easiest thing. And that's using the remove tool and just swipe along the bottom here. That'll get rid of that. I could probably do the same over here because the remove tool's pretty good, but this is relatively even sort of a color and texture. So it can be a little bit easier just to do this. Use the select tool, and in theory delete and fill selection should do the job without any effort. Yep, sweet. Now up here for this one, because there's a lot of consistency here, delete and fill selection might work. I'll give it a go, see if it does. It did. Wasn't an issue. These 2 little dots here, which are, I don't know what they are, probably rubbish or something or other. Or something shiny on the fence. I think they're actually holes in the fence, holes in the shading netting. Now, because of their position, you can't avoid these because these are eyelets, but these I might just see if the remove tool can fix them. It's not perfect, but they're not as noticeable as white dots, and there's nothing else here to bother with. I won't bother with that. Nothing else needs tidying up there. So I run my action, that turns that into a full size image, because I remember I cropped it. So what I'm doing is using Photoshop's mass to bring it back up to full size, save it and label it as such, full size. Now what I'm putting up on this website for sale is slightly downsized but still high res versions of the image, hence this action here. This action actually runs two actions. That's all it does. It runs this action up here, resize to 5000, and it runs this my signature large, and hey presto, I get my signature. That's readable. If I go to full size, you can read it. It's not too intrusive. It doesn't really distract from the image, so I'll leave it like that. But I can, if I wanted to, I can change the layer blending to anything that will make it stand out to the degree I want. The reason I do this is because I can do literally what I just showed you. Whereas Lightroom, yes, you can add a signature on export, but you can't really control the blending mode or anything like that, so you end up with a signature that's a specific brightness and you can't adjust that. And I prefer to do it this way. If I was in any sort of massive hurry, yes, I could just export a bunch of stuff out as JPEGs, but that's not something I do very often. 5000X signed. Now, because I also want a social media version of this image, normally I would run this script here, which runs this purple one and then this signature one here. But because I've already got the signature on there, all I do is run this one here, which resizes it. And hey presto, I've now got my social media size one. Save that. Now let's pick one that might be a little bit different to edit. Not happy with that one, it's not quite straight enough. I might as well edit this one. As per usual, start with the easiest bit. Just getting rid of this. That's using the remove tool. While I'm here, and this is picked up the line, so I had to do that twice. If you saw what happened there, what it did was when it did that, it picked up this bit of line. So just go over it again, and normally that fixes it. This is where you can get a little bit OCD. There's a couple of little bits of mark or leaf or something here, which I might as well get rid of. Just clean up the area. Not too worried. That one, because there's no fence visible, I could give that a go, because it's a big leaf and it's distracting. Just give back the grass. Now the interesting one's going to be this one here. I could try the remove tool and see what it does. I don't expect it to go. Oh, actually went better than I thought, because people don't realise that the remove tool and the generative fill tool are actually very, very similar. They actually work very much the same. They're a lot more intelligent than the other fill options. We got, if we right click on there, you got content aware fill and delete and fill selection. These two, that one and that one, work by taking stuff immediately around it and working out what needs to be used, which is why when you use delete and fill or content aware, you can sometimes get the replaced bit being a little bit out of focus because it's copied it from somewhere that's a different focus. Normally it's not too bad, but sometimes it can be a bit screwy. Whereas generative fill, along with remove tool, actually do a little bit more thinking, and they look at what should be there. The remove tool's not always perfect. See, the other thing that bugs me with this photograph, and this is where it comes down to, is this plastic bottle. Now the plastic bottle's in front of the leaf, so what I might do is I'll start here and start with the remove tool and see if it can remove this to something that is not too obvious, and it did an okay job. Technically, if you look really closely, the fence hasn't been repaired perfectly, but no one's going to notice. But it does mean that we now have no bottle there, and for me that's a lot cleaner image. I've done that in quite a few images. You don't always get a chance to do it because it's not always going to be a simple fix, because keep in mind you're processing hundreds of images, so you really want to look at things that can be done relatively quickly. For some images it's not going to be done, but others, yeah, it'll be a case of, oh, there's a bottle there, I don't want that, get rid of it. Now in this particular image, hang on, in this particular image, you'll notice when I added this, slapped the signature over, the signature is not overly clear, like good luck even knowing it's there. This is where your blending options come in handy, and that one's not too bad. The good thing with the blending options for layers like this is you can just scroll down them and find one that suits. Right, now we'll look for something else that's got an interesting, it's going to be an interesting edit. Oh, the other thing I forgot to do is, I'll do it with both of these at once. Normally I come out of develop mode because I've done the editing in Lightroom, and once I've edited these two in Photoshop, sent them to Photoshop for their bit, I will drag them to the uploaded folder, because this is the originals I'm dragging there. Why did that not move them? Oh, that's right, I had moved them, I just completely forgot. That moves them, but they're not taken out of the collection. Hit B. Hit B. That's why I do this as I go along. I will edit this one. Now if I was getting artsy, I could do all sorts of cute stuff in here when it comes to how I edit this to make things stand out, but I won't. What I will do is I'll select this. Now because of this bar here, I'm pretty sure delete and fill, it doesn't look quite right. So I'll use, but while I'm at it, I'll just circle these two, that. And I've decided I will take this out just because it's right on the corner and she's so close to it, and going in that direction, and it's not going to be too much of a hassle to do it anyway. So I've selected all these bits, and then I'm going to use generative fill. Don't type anything, hit generate. And the good thing with this is it looks at each of those bits of selected area and creates what's going to go in there. Okay, fixed all that, not a problem. A lot of people will do each of those individually when in actual fact you can do them all together. You got three choices along here, but what's come up with is fine. It's because that's treated as one iteration or one use of generative fill. Because keep in mind, using Photoshop, you get a set number of, I think it's 100, 250, something like that, depending on your account. If you've got all the Adobe stuff on your account, you might get 1,000 uses, but I think the photographer's package you get a couple of hundred or something like that, I can't remember. And after that, the generation slows down. It slows down so that it takes longer for it to do its thing. So if you can group them together and do multiple at once, it saves uses. The other thing is using one of the other tools where possible. Now I knew the piece up here and the piece here needed the generative fill to work properly, in particular for this piece across here. So then I just added these other two pieces in anyway, rather than just using one of the other tools, because it was just one use of the generative fill. But if this was a mark on here or a leaf sitting out here on the green, I would have used the remove tool or something like that. Now Control E to merge that down, go up to full size. Yep, my signature's reasonably visible there. Right, after this we'll have a search for one more interesting edit. See if there's another one to do that's a little bit different. Doing this for so many photographs, you get into a flippin' routine after a while. Right. That's pretty straightforward. I could do this one. Yeah, I'll do this one because this one's going to be interesting. Now, what I'm looking at doing is attempting to remove this number, and therefore this, because they go together, this in the background, and this player. Now, this is where I know I've got to use generative fill for this. I can group all those together as one go, and take the chance that it'll work, because if it doesn't, if it partially works but I may have to do a second go at it. So what I'll do is I'll select this, actually just add that little bit of light in as well. I will select this, I will select this. I don't want to go over the top of the shading material for that if I can avoid it. Select this. Yes, I could have done those together. Ooh, that's a bit wonky. Could have done those together as one big selection, but personally I think it's just a bit safer to do them as one. I want to get just enough of the green. I went a bit over the top there, so I can remove a bit of that. Same as this here. I want that bit because of that bit of colour there. I don't need all this side. Oops, took out too much then. Add a bit back in. Oops, I forgot to change it. Right, now we go across to this. The easy one obviously is the tennis ball. Now for the player, I want to go reasonably close to the player, but we don't want to leave out any of the slightly blurred edge of the player. And you don't have to do this all in one hit, because I've got the add to selection button clicked. I could do it in chunks. I'll just hide this for the moment. Right, that's everything. Oh, hang on. I might include that little bright spot there and that there, just because they're annoying me. Hit generative fill. Let's do its thing. If you ever have trouble with generative fill coming up with the that error that says you've breached their policy as far as it, in other words, it thinks it's your selection is something naughty or the shape of it or whatever, just put a dot in the text box and that generally fixes that. See, that worked. Player's gone without any hint. Those white bits of border gone, the white bits of light are gone. Problem solved. So I'm happy with that. Merge that down. Now go to the next stage, which is, pop that out again. Again, not clear the signature, so we pick a blending mode that suits. The most common one I use is that one there, especially if the background's quite bright, and then I can just adjust the opacity as I see fit. And that's that. I don't think there's any images along here that I've got any outstandingly fancy editing. That's pretty much like the last one. I'm probably going to take this guy out. It's not essential to keep him in there, but on this photograph I won't take him out, because the selection has to come to do this properly. One needs to make sure one's selection comes down. It only picks a couple of pixels from on that racket all the way around the edge. You don't want to cut into the orange. You've got to stay on the green, only just into the racket by 1 or 2 pixels at most. And that's just a pain in the neck. Also, it's not essential. It's not going to be a big deal. Whereas this one here, I can. No one knows that the guy is there, so no one's going to miss him. And it's easy to do, and it just tidies things up. I could probably bring that crop down a bit. Go back here and change that crop. Probably bring that crop down a little bit to come inside the roof line, so we don't end up with those 2 little bright bits that were up there. But yeah, that's basically editing in predominantly Lightroom with a bit of Photoshop editing. I'll probably do another one of these later this week. I'll pick a time and day and that I can set aside and give a lot more notice that I'm doing it. Like, I don't know, what's today, Monday? I can probably look at doing one on Thursday. Yeah, I could probably look at doing one on Thursday. I'll have some other photographs to edit then as well for something different that I might be shooting. So yeah, that's basically my live stream done.